Hello and welcome back to Just Meg Elise, a podcast about healing, remembering who you are, and coming into greater alignment. I'm Meg, and each week I'm going to be sharing the soul work, self-reflections, and healing practices that have helped me in the hopes that they help you too. So today we're going to talk about our triggers and how our triggers are our teachers and why that's sometimes hard to accept. So first of all, our triggers aren't bad. They're just information. It's a signpost about what's going on inside of us that we may need to still heal or work on. A trigger is a reaction to something that touches on like an unhealed wound or possibly like a shadow aspect inside of us. And I'm going to give you an example. From a shadow work lens, our triggers point to something that we've either disowned, suppressed, or shamed within us. So as an example, let's say that you find somebody rude. And let's say you're somebody who you find is often pointing out other people's rudeness, okay? That might be an opportunity for you to then ask yourself, have I ever been rude in my life? Okay, if the answer is yes, because most likely it is, all of us have been rude at some point in our lives, then ask yourself, okay, was I going through something in that moment when I was rude to another person? Again, most likely the answer was yes. Maybe you were overwhelmed, overstimulated, angry. Maybe you were going through grief. Who knows the reason? It doesn't make it okay that we were rude in that moment, but there is an explanation for it, right? Okay, so can we have compassion for ourselves for those moments that we were rude? Great. Wonderful. Okay, now can we have compassion for another person who's possibly going through that same thing? This is the beautiful part of shadow work. It helps us to release the judgment that we often have towards other people when we realize, I have done that too. Would I have wanted somebody to judge me in that moment? No. Okay, so can we have more compassion for this person in front of us? Can we do less judging and be more curious? What's going on with them? Are you okay? That sort of thing. Let me give you another example that might help to nail down the point. So I used to work with this guy and I always thought he was so lazy. I would ask him to do something, he wouldn't do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it really upset me to the point where like I didn't even like interacting with him because I thought, you're so lazy, just do your job. Like that's the type of thoughts that I would have. And then one day when I was diving into shadow work, I asked myself, what irks me about him so much? I get that, I feel he's not doing his job to the fullest potential, etc. But truly, what is the root of it? Okay, I think that he's lazy. Okay, have I ever done something or acted in a way that could be perceived as lazy? Yeah, I could. I don't like that part of myself. I don't like the rude part of myself. I don't like the lazy part of myself. We don't like the negative aspects of ourselves, but all of us have those negative aspects. All of us have both light and dark aspects in all of us. So is it possible that I'm shaming or denying or suppressing the negative aspects within me, and instead of saying to myself, you know what, I also have those qualities, can I bring into this situation less judgment? Instead of saying that, we often become very polarized to somebody else doing the behavior that we don't like within ourselves. Hopefully that made sense. So like, for example, the fact that I was calling him lazy, okay, is there a part of myself that knows that I can also be, quote, lazy or, I don't even like the word lazy because I really think it's just nervous system dysregulation, but we won't get into that right now. But is it possible that me calling him lazy is really me denying and suppressing that part of myself? Me being shameful of that part of myself, and instead of accepting that, I'm then projecting it outward onto someone else. That's not to say that somebody isn't being rude. That's not to say somebody isn't being lazy or isn't being whatever quality you're judging them for. That's not to say that. But it is to say, okay, I also have those qualities within me. Can I bring a little bit more compassion into this situation? Can I bring a little bit more understanding into this situation? Because at the core, at the root, we are all one. I haven't talked about this a lot on the podcast, but truly, at the level of atoms, we are all one. I talk about this in my book, how, hold on. Actually, it's a really good explanation, so I want to read directly from it. Okay, so this is from the very first chapter. It's called Section 1, What is Normal? This is actually my favorite chapter. So I'm just reading a little snippet of it to explain what I mean by we are all connected, we're all one. At some point, you may have heard a spiritual teacher say that all human beings are energetic beings, or that we are all made of energy. Perhaps you've also heard the theory that a person having an auric field. The first time I heard this, I remember being a bit confused, thinking I have neurons firing in the brain which might be considered electric, but my body is solid. However, over the years, And the more information I've gathered, I realize the truth of that statement. To understand this, you must first understand that everything in the universe is made of atoms and energy. The human body is made of millions of atoms, and the makeup of an atom is 99% empty space. To put this in perspective, if the core of an atom were the size of a peanut, the entire atom would be the size of a football stadium. Atoms only appear solid because they are vibrating at a certain frequency. Our bodies, the chair you may be sitting on, the car that you drive, all appear to be solid, but they are all atoms vibrating at a certain frequency, creating the illusion that the object is solid. However, the structure of matter changes based on what frequency it is vibrating at. Therefore, at an atomic level, we are all connected to everything around us. The atoms in the air around us are all connected to ourselves. We are all connected to the chair we're sitting on. We're all connected to the person next to us. It all appears to be solid and separate from us, but still, every atom that forms our body is interconnected with every other atom that surrounds us. Honestly, we're like sitting in a big vegetable soup, with some atoms being more solid than others. My point is, we truly are all connected. And at the level of atoms, I truly believe that we are all one. And at the level of source, if you believe in God, source, the divine, the universe, whatever it is, it doesn't have to have a specific name for you to understand it. But whatever you believe that is, I believe it's a divine energy that we all return to one day. I truly believe that we are all part of that divine energy, but that we project our consciousness down to earth or down to any life experience in order to grow and evolve our soul. But at the level of our souls, we are all still one entity, one thing. It's almost like, I forget who said this. I think it was Rumi, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they said all of our souls is like a single drop in the ocean. We are all still part of the ocean. We're just like single droplets experiencing this life as separateness, right? Because from our perception, this is my life, this is my body, and then that's somebody else's life and that's somebody else's body. But truly, it's not really like that at the level of atoms, at the level of our soul, right? So I try and think about that every single time I start to judge another person. I think, Megan, you're judging yourself. First of all, not only are you truly judging yourself because you're shaming the part of yourself that you don't like, rudeness, laziness, whatever it is, whatever quality it is, you're shaming that, you're suppressing it, and then you're projecting it out and judging another person for it. This is a very hard concept for a lot of people to understand, and I get that. Maybe I'll try and talk about this more in future episodes, but that is the gist of it. That is the gist of shadow work. It's looking at our own shadows, our own, characteristics and mechanisms and the way we move through the world, and looking at that and saying, can I bring love to that? Can I stop shaming those parts of myself? And if I love and accept those parts of myself, it becomes much harder to shame and judge another person. That's the goal, right? So that's what I mean when I say our triggers are signposts. Okay, if we're harshly judging another, is it possible that we dislike that aspect in ourselves? Because most likely that aspect also lives within us. Whether it's anger, frustration, rudeness, laziness, whatever it is, all of those aspects live within us. And so can we try to recognize that, bring love to those aspects of ourselves, and recognize that when we see those aspects being displayed in another, can we bring compassion to that moment? Can we bring more curiosity to that moment? Are they possibly going through something? Just like we would want that for ourselves. If I'm ever frustrated out in public, I sure to hell hope that somebody, instead of judging me, is like, I wonder if she's going through something. Maybe I'm with a friend and she sees that I'm frustrated. Like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, I would want that. And I hope that for you too. Okay, can we do the same thing for strangers? I'm not saying to like walk up to every person who's feeling frustrated and be like, are you okay? Some people don't want to talk to a stranger about it. I'm just saying, can you bring more compassion into that interaction? You don't have to say a thing to them, but just bringing more compassion in so that you're not judging them, right? Because judgment doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to me. It has never felt good to me to judge another person. I will be honest, sometimes judgment is like my first reaction. It's almost like those neural networks are so well formed. It's like judgment is your first reaction. But anytime I start to recognize that I'm judging another person, I will speak back to those thoughts and go, no, we're not doing that. Do not judge her. And then sometimes I'll try and bring in the opposite. Like, let's say, okay, here's a good example. I was in the grocery store and there was this girl wearing like she looked like she was about my age, and she was wearing like a cartoonish hat, almost like a Comic-Con looking hat, but in the grocery store. And at Comic-Con, it was not Comic-Con time. And I remember first seeing her, and my immediate thought was, well, that's kind of childish. Like, why is she wearing that? And then I thought, what are you doing? Don't judge her. It's not your place to judge her, number one. And number two, you don't know what she's going through. She could be autistic. She could have just come from some sort of costume party. She could just love wearing that out in public. Maybe it brings her joy. Like, can we look at it through that lens instead of the immediate judgment lens? You know what I mean? Also, another thing that I want to point out is with shadow work, yes, we have, like we talked about, we have both the light and dark aspects within us. But let's talk about the light aspects for a moment. You would not be able to notice somebody's kindness, somebody's generosity, somebody's compassion unless you also had those qualities within you. The human brain is not able to notice another quality within another person unless that quality is also within you. And a lot of times we learn these qualities throughout our life, right? Like we learn compassion, we learn empathy, we learn these things as we're growing up. So let's say you see somebody out in the wild and they've given, I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's say you see somebody giving a person experiencing homelessness money, food, giving them something that they need, and you think to yourself, wow, that's a really compassionate person. That's because those things are also within you. You would not be able to notice the compassion of another if those qualities weren't also in you, okay? So just remember that next time. And also I feel like it helps to lessen our own self-judgment. Let's say I do find myself judging someone and then I start to go into judgment about myself for judging them. It can help to lessen that because I think to myself, okay, everybody judges, it's okay, we're going to do better next time. It brings a lot more self-compassion into the experience. Sometimes our triggers too, this is something else I want to mention, sometimes our triggers are like disproportionate based on what's going on. And when you notice that, sometimes it's hard to notice in the moment, but like maybe later on when you look back and you notice, I really did react like it was heightened. My reaction was very heightened. Again, I really feel like that points to, it wasn't necessarily that moment that was triggering you, it was something else inside of you. Somebody said one time, if you notice that a person's reaction is above a level 5, that's not about you. That's about something else. Or maybe it's about like a stacking of multiple things, okay? Let's say, we've all cut somebody off in traffic, all of us. Don't you dare lie to me. I don't like that I do that, but it has happened. Like maybe I'm like, oh fuck, I'm about to miss my exit, whatever it is, and then we get over really quickly. Let's say that person has a reaction above a 5 and they start road raging. That's not about you. Like, yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, you shouldn't have done that. But their reaction, that's not fully about you. Something's going on in their life. Maybe they're sad. Maybe they're experiencing depression, whatever it is. Like, their road rage, I'm not excusing their behavior. Shadow work is not an excuse for bad behavior. It's just simply a different lens to look through people's behavior with. Okay, but can we look at that road rage example through the lens of like, maybe that person's going through something, because if they're meeting me at higher than a level 5, like that's not about me. That's something else going on with them. I do want to touch on quickly about shadow work not being an excuse for bad behavior. I was talking about shadow work recently in like a social media video, and this woman commented, and I was, telling her all of these things about how we have rudeness within us and all of these things, trying to make the same point I made a moment ago. And she goes, well, what about this guy? He's a complete asshole and I'm not an asshole. And I'm like, I get that. I'm not saying that man that you're dealing with isn't being an asshole or isn't being abusive. I'm not saying that. I will be the first person to tell you need to set boundaries with certain people, especially if they're not willing to take accountability and properly apologize and work to change their behavior. Sometimes you really do need to set strict boundaries with those people, including removing them from your life completely. However, what shadow work allows us to do is, can we look at that through a lens of, why is this man triggering me so much? What in his behavior is so triggering to me? Maybe he's being arrogant. Okay, is there a part of me that shames my own arrogance or confidence because I'm afraid if I'm too confident, people will perceive it as me being arrogant? Something like that. Do you know what I mean? It always roots back to ourselves. I don't know what was going on with that situation with that woman. I don't know if it was an abusive situation or maybe it's just a work person and he's being an asshole to her. Who knows? But let's say maybe she perceives him being an asshole because he's very straightforward. Okay, being straightforward isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay, let's turn that lens inward. Could it possibly be because I have trouble speaking my own truth? And so when I see somebody else speaking their truth with confidence, with clarity, sometimes even with a little bit of sting on it because they're not afraid to say what they want to say when they want to say it, is it possible that there's a part of me that's a little bit jealous that they're able to do that and I'm not? Do you know what I mean? Because here's the thing. If I didn't have that aspect within me, if I had made peace with that aspect within me about, not being able to fully share my voice, and then starting to heal that and starting to share my voice more and share what I'm feeling and share my truth, when you see somebody else doing it, there isn't as much judgment towards them. Okay, can we lessen the judgment and become curious? Again, I don't know what that woman is experiencing, so I'm not excusing abusive behavior if that's what she's experiencing, but I'm just saying, like, on a normal day, all of us come across somebody who we might consider an asshole. Maybe they spoke their mind to a degree that hurt your feelings. Maybe they acted in a way that you perceived as arrogant. Maybe they raised your voice to a level that you weren't comfortable with. You know what I mean? It could be so many different things, and I'm not excusing any of that behavior, but what does it point to within ourselves? And when you start to make peace with the parts of yourself, there's less judgment towards other people. And don't you want to live in a world where there's less judgment, not only coming from yourself, but coming from others? It does not feel good to be judged by somebody. And it certainly doesn't feel good for me to judge somebody. I want to live in a world with less judgment. Okay, so how do we create that? We start with ourselves. It starts from within. It always starts from within. So, next time you become triggered, what if you can pause and instead ask yourself, what am I feeling? What does this remind me of? What part of me is possibly asking for support right now? Is there something within this interaction that I maybe have that same aspect within me, but I'm pushing that aspect down and I'm shaming that aspect within me? Do I see a part of myself in this person? What about this moment is triggering me so much? The thing is, too, with our triggers, it could also be triggering from a past experience. Like, let's say that you see somebody yelling out in public and you become very triggered. It could be because you were yelled at a lot as a child and it's bringing up memories from the past, right? But again, that trigger, because it's bringing up memories from the past, that's not that person's fault. It's not your fault either. It's nobody's fault. I'm just saying that trigger is happening because of something within you. The person next to you might not be triggered at all. It doesn't make that person's behavior okay. I'm just trying to offer a different perspective. When we're triggered, it's often something going on within ourselves because the person next to us might not be triggered at all, pointing to the fact that it's something within us, not something universal. Hopefully that makes sense. Also, here's another thing. Sometimes we're triggered because we believe something to be true, even if it's not true. Let me give you an example. Let's say somebody walks up to you and says, "You're a tree." You would be like, "What? This person's crazy. I'm not a tree. I'm confused," and maybe walk away. Like, there's no part of you that believes that statement to be true, so you're not going to be triggered by it. Let's say somebody walks up to you and says, "You're a horrible fill in the blank," whatever your profession is. Let's say somebody walked up to me and said, "You're a horrible writer." That would get me. That would get me in my feels. Not because it's true, but maybe because there's a part of me that wonders if it is. You know what I mean? So, like, I've written my book. I think I'm a great writer, but there is still part of me that's like, but am I? Can I improve? I know I'm not the best. Like, is there ways for me to improve? So if somebody was to point that out, if somebody was to say something, it might trigger me. Again, it doesn't make that person's behavior okay, but it does allow me to move inward and say, why is this triggering me so much? Is it possible that I believe, or that there's a part of me that believes what they're saying to be true? Even if it's not true, is there a part of me that believes that it is? It's touching on something that needs to be healed. Because you're human, and that's okay. So our triggers become invitations for healing. We just need to become curious when we're triggered and ask more introspective questions. You know what's really helpful for this? Somebody else pointed this out to me recently, but go into ChatGPT. Literally talk to ChatGPT and say, I was triggered by this. What do you think the trigger's cause is? Why do you think I'm triggered by this? Is there maybe a part of me that believes this to be true, even though it's not true? ChatGPT can be very good at explaining to you things that maybe you're not seeing, right? Or ask a therapist if you have a therapist. Write down a moment when you were triggered and then ask them, what is this trigger trying to show me if you're not able to get there on your own? Here's the other thing. Once we recognize our triggers, the trigger lessens. Like, it's not going to be that big of a trigger moving forward. Once we bring awareness to our triggers, they begin to lessen. And isn't that a good thing? Don't we all want that? I want to be less triggered. I still absolutely have triggers, but they're less now and they're not as often. And when they do happen, I'm able to ask myself, what is this showing me? What is this trying to teach me? So the next time you're triggered, maybe just pause and ask, what is this trying to show me? When you're triggered, your body truly is, and your mind truly is trying to protect something tender within you. Okay, so it's not a bad thing that you're triggered. I want to make sure you understand that. We're not grouping our triggers into being something bad. They just are. We are human. We are going to be triggered. It's learning to heal those parts of ourselves by asking, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? And looking at that with self-compassion and self-love. So we've come to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a very complex topic, and it's hard to squeeze everything into a 20 to 30 minute podcast episode. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try and address them in a different episode. Also, if you're interested in this sort of work, I talk a lot about shadow work in my book, Don't You Dare. It's available on Amazon. There's also a link below to purchase if you're interested in that. And I'm also creating the Audible version right now. So I'm excited about that, and I'll tell you guys once that's done. I also have a most loved guided meditation bundle available for purchase. These are my highest rated meditations over the years. I also recently finished my affirmation reset course. Yay! So that is also available for purchase. The link is below. So the affirmation reset course is for people who struggle with limiting beliefs, struggle with negative beliefs, and learning to slowly shift and rewire those beliefs. So if that's you, this course is for you. I also offer one-on-one coaching and hypnotherapy services. If you're interested in that, please visit my website, meganshirey.com, meganshirey.com. And lastly, I am a meditation instructor on the Insight Timer app. I teach there every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be 9 Central, 8 Mountain, 7 Pacific. So please join me there if you can. If you enjoy these episodes, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And please leave us a review. It helps us to expand this community. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be joyous and at ease, and until next time.